Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating text about what happens when the divine literally becomes your roommate. And let's be honest, we all know how incredibly stressful a normal roommate can be, right? We're going to examine a short but really potent source document titled The Story of Jesus as My House Guest. Whether you're approaching this text from a theological angle, a psychological one, or simply looking at it as an absolute masterclass in metaphor, the way it frames personal transformation is just brilliant. It takes this giant, abstract concept of interchange and maps it directly onto something we all intimately understand: the physical layout of a house.
So right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself, if you had a divine house guest, which room would you lock? I mean, think of your own mind, your daily habits, your private moments as literal physical rooms in a house. You know how it is. There are those spaces we proudly show off to company, and then there are the spaces where we just frantically shove all the clutter when someone unexpectedly knocks on the door. Keep that specific locked door in your mind as we guide you through this architectural tour of the self. Because the source text we're analyzing today, it forces its narrator to confront exactly that. Okay, let's dive right in.
Section 1. The Unexpected Roommate. Let's look at the initial premise. The text opens up by noting a very specific catalyst for change. The exact phrase it uses is, "Things change as he stays longer and longer." Notice that it's not a fleeting one-hour visit. The text really emphasizes that prolonged exposure, the sheer duration of the stay, is exactly what forces the environment to adapt. Think about it. When someone actually moves in with you, your fundamental daily routines have to shift to accommodate them. You just can't fake it for a week. And the text illustrates this shift brilliantly. It says, "Food became of better quality and I had to give up my poor foods." This is a classic, highly effective metaphor. We can interpret this as a shift in the daily diet of both the mind and the body. Those poor foods represent the easy, maybe low-value habits or mental inputs the narrator was just surviving on before the guest arrived. The actual presence of the guest demands better quality nourishment. It forces an absolute upgrade in the standard of daily living. It's really the first tangible sign of internal transformation, showing up in a very external, routine way. Moving right along to Section 2, touring the metaphorical house. The source introduces a highly relatable detail right here. The narrator honestly admits, "I wanted to keep him in his guest room." I mean, think about the psychology behind that for a second. It's that basic human instinct to compartmentalize. We want the benefits of the guest, maybe the status, or just the comfort of having them under our roof, but we want them contained. We really want to draw a neat little boundary so the rest of our messy, everyday life can carry on totally undisturbed outside that one door. But the text immediately counters that instinct with this quote, "But he requested seeing the entire house room by room." And just like that, the narrator's attempt at compartmentalization is completely shattered. The divine guest demands total, unhindered access. He is definitely not interested in being a passive observer in some designated safe space. Instead, he initiates a comprehensive architectural tour of the self, signaling that transformation simply cannot be isolated to just one little part of your life. So the text lists out the specific rooms they visit together. We've got the kitchen, the playroom, the fellowship room, and the workshop. Notice how these four spaces pretty much encompass the primary spectrum of daily human living. You've got the kitchen for sustenance, the playroom for leisure and recreation, the fellowship room for socialization, and the workshop for your labor. By walking through these four spaces, the guest is essentially inspecting every single aspect of the narrator's daily existence. Let's look a little closer at the final room on that list, the workshop. We can define this space as the representation of one's productivity, output, and potential. The source gives us a really specific interaction here. It notes that the guest wanted me to make more in my workshop, and this brilliantly illustrates that he's not just there to play the role of a harsh inspector or a judge, he's actually there to actively encourage. He looks at the narrator's output and pushes them to fulfill their true potential, basically challenging them to expand their capacity and make more out of their life's work. Section 3. Uninvited Party Guests. Let's see what happens in the party room. The narrator describes this party room, but look at who is actually in attendance. The text explicitly lists gossip, envy, and disparaging remarks. The author uses some great personification here, literally turning these specific negative behaviors and toxic mental habits into actual party guests occupying the space. It's a pretty vivid realization when you think about it. We don't just experience negativity, we actively host it. We give it a comfortable room in our minds to just throw a party. So, how exactly does the divine house guest react to this environment? The text simply says, "He came in and then left the room." That's it. There's no shouting match, there's no dramatic lecture. It is a silent, yet incredibly powerful reaction. The pure presence of the guest is completely incompatible with that toxic environment of gossip and envy, so he just quietly withdraws. But man, that silent exit has a massive impact on the homeowner. The text reveals the aftermath with this quote: "I found out that the room was less satisfying to me now. It is not fun," he said, and I soon agreed. The absolutely crucial point here is that the guest's presence completely changes the homeowner's perspective. Once you've experienced the higher quality of the guest's company, those old bad habits suddenly lose their appeal. They start to feel hollow, totally unsatisfying, and exactly as the text states, they simply aren't fun anymore. Section 4. The hall closet. Now we're getting to the deepest secrets. The text delivers its absolute most startling and visceral imagery right here. It states bluntly, "Jesus smelled a dead rat." It's a stark, literal phrase that just stops you right in your tracks. It's gross, it's intrusive, and it is entirely impossible to ignore once it's been discovered. Let's decode this imagery because it's so powerful. The dead rat in the hall closet is a brilliant metaphor for hidden shame. It represents those deep-seated flaws, past traumas, or long-buried secrets that we shove into the absolute darkest corners of our minds, just hoping no one will ever notice the rot. But the source makes it perfectly clear. The divine guest notices. You literally cannot hide it from him. And they both agree, as the text says, that it must go. And here is the ultimate climax of the entire narrative. The homeowner realizes they are entirely powerless to clean out this deepest shame all by themselves. The text draws a very sharp contrast. Since I could not do it, the narrator admits, he did it for me. This perfectly illustrates a profound intervention. It's the realization that some deeply buried rot in our lives actually requires outside divine help to remove. The guest doesn't just point out the terrible smell and leave. He rolls up his sleeves and handles the heavy lifting of true restoration. Section 5. An ongoing open invitation. The lasting bond. This source material concludes by summarizing the new relationship with 3 key takeaways. The narrator states they had a wonderful time with the guest. The guest assures the narrator they can call him anytime, and that he would be happy to come on over for a visit. Notice the incredible warmth here. That intense scrutiny and house cleaning didn't result in condemnation at all. It resulted in a joyful, deeply open friendship. The house is finally clean and the door is permanently unlocked. Which brings us right back around to you. He is ready to visit. Is your house open? This text so brilliantly uses the metaphor of a house to show us that true transformation requires granting total access, everything from the food in the kitchen to the dead rats hiding in the closet. So as you walk away from this explainer today, I want to challenge you to really reflect. Are you still trying to keep your guest locked away in just one room? Or are you finally ready to hand over the keys to the entire house?